All right. Well, one of the big announcements that came out this week was the announcement of a movie that we have actually talked about in a previous episode. And we talked about the franchise in general. And that is Now You See Me 3. We'll call it that when we start off because there's a whole rant that I want to get into here right off the bat. There was Now You See Me, then there was Now You See Me 2, and now there's the third installment. And for those of you that may not be aware, the Now You See Me series is basically heist movie, which Jay and I both love heist movies,
Yes.
and it revolves around magicians that are doing these heists. So it's heist movie, it's illusions, close-up magic, all this escapes, all this kind of thing. All of these things I love. I'm a huge fan of magic. So we love the Now You See Me series. So there was Now You See Me, then they had Now You See Me 2. We already had a rant about how I was like, this is ridiculous. Why? How can you have a movie where Now You See Me is clearly a reference to the old magician sort of the things that they always say, right? The things that have just become so ingrained that we've all picked it up through cultural osmosis. So the Now You See Me phrase. And then they had the second one called Now You See Me Too. And I lost my mind whenever this happened. I was like, how do you have a heist movie that focuses on magicians where you called the first one Now You See Me and the sequel is not called Now You Don't, right? So apparently they got my letters. They heard me screaming into the void. And so the sequence now is Now You See Me, Now You See Me Too. And the third installment is called Now You See Me, colon, Now You Don't.
Can I play devil's advocate here?
You
Or
can.
or or maybe devil's cynic? And
Sure.
first off, when you had your rant the last time we brought this up, I agreed with you. Then I started thinking,
I don't like your tone, Jay.
I started thinking, does the Now You Don't, does it fit with the plot of Now You See Me Too? And I found that it didn't. Because, we had Harry Potter basically leading these guys on a wild goose chase throughout, London or whatever. And then we find out, of course, they had been doing it to him entirely the whole time. And then Michael Caine's still involved. And, it's a great segment. I still agree. I think it should have been called Now You See Me, Now You Don't. But it just got me thinking maybe they didn't call it that because it didn't really fit. They really weren't doing a disappearing act per se.
So I'm not nearly that big about it as far as like breaking down the actual content because I think the main thing is that they're magicians. So my big deal though, regardless, is that really they've kind of already blown up the naming convention. I don't like if they were Now You See Me, then they were Now You See Me Too. They should just be Now You See Me 3. They've never had a subtitle before. They should just be Now You See Me 3 at this point.
I get
They
it. Yeah.
lost the right to the naming convention. Now they're like John Wick, which I love John Wick, but John Wick, the naming convention of John Wick is all cattywampus now, right? So in my opinion, and this is why the episode is named what it is that they should have gone Now You See Me, Now You Don't for the second one. And then whether or not you wanted the third one to end it or you wanted it to continue, if you wanted it to potentially continue beyond 3, you would say, and now for my next trick. If you wanted it to end at 3, you would say, and now for my last trick. These are things that we know magicians to say. They're very common. So that's what I think the naming convention should have been. There you
Yeah.
go. There's my rant on the name. But
And
I
I
am
feel like
excited that it's coming out. And
glad to see Morgan Freeman coming back.
glad to see Morgan Freeman anytime he's doing anything. Here we go. So there is the cast, the main cast, and we have Isla Fisher is back. So previously, she was actually absent from Now You See Me Too. So she
Yeah.
was one of the original 4 horsemen in the first one. There was Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, Dave Franco, and Isla Fisher. And then in the second one, she was the only one to not return. So she does return in this one, as does the girl that they got to replace her in the second one, and a few more people. And one of those people, if you look in the upper right hand corner of this poster here, is actually Justice. I can't remember his last name, but his first name is Justice. He's an actor that was
Smith.
Justice Smith. Okay, he was an actor that was also in the D&D movie D&D Honor Among Thieves as the Wizard, and
As a low level wizard.
True. And in the previous movie, Now You See Me Too, Daniel Ratliff was in it. and they made a very like veiled reference to his time as Harry Potter. They made a joke out of it where they're like, "Oh, have you ever tried magic?" And he says, "Oh, I dabbled in high school." So which was a
Yeah.
clear nod to Harry Potter. So I hope that they do something similar with Justice and kind of make a reference to his previous dalliances in the fantasy realm in other franchises.
Yeah,
But
so I'm definitely looking forward. I'm wondering too, is Ruffalo going to make a cameo in this?
see, this is one where I'm kind of curious on a lot of these things. So I looked at the IMDb page, and Mark
Yeah,
Ruffalo is listed, as is Daniel Ratliff. So they're both listed as appearing, though neither of them are quoted, neither of them appear in the trailer. And obviously, Mark Ruffalo, I'm not going to give any spoilers to the big thing, but I will say that he is a very big component of the previous two movies. And Daniel Ratliff would just be a great addition to have along continuous character from the second one. So I don't know. I do have something that I want to bounce off of by watching a clip from the trailer. I wanted to do a full trailer reaction, but as I said, we are a growing channel. We're just getting started. We're still looking for our first 50 subscribers, 45 away. Please give us a like and subscribe. But I didn't want to shut down any progress that we had to establish ourselves as good boys for Daddy YouTube. So
yeah.
I have a very brief thing that I just have one little concern about this movie, and we'll see. It could be very unfounded, right?
I
So
also
I
want to
guess
make one more point
absolutely.
after you do your video.
Okay, I guess I'll show the video first, and then I'll make my point on it. All right. So give me one moment here. We'll just play this. Here you go.
Hey, disappear in 3, 2,
This is
1.
it. This is my concern. So in the first movie, it was very much about all things that were very realistic as far as things that could be done. Right?
Yeah,
There wasn't anything, they didn't stretch the limits as far as, or at least not much. It was all things that could people do have the skill to accomplish the things that they were showing on there. Even though they did use some CGI, these are things that are possibilities. To
right.
make an example, Jesse Eisenberg, there's a scene very early in the first movie where he is handcuffed to an interrogation table, and then an officer comes in and tells him that actually we can't press charges, you're free to go, and he flings the handcuffs off of his own wrists, and the officer is now handcuffed to the table. They're now on his wrists. That
Right.
was a CGI shot, but Jesse Eisenberg actually trained to do this. He had trained to take the handcuffs off and do the whole thing. The shot just didn't look right, didn't look the way they wanted it to look, so they did it with CGI. There was another scene as well in the I believe it was the second one where they did the card thing, right, where they're passing the card around, and that was done with CGI, but it's stuff that people can manipulate cards to that level. So even before, when CGI was used, it was used to just to get the shot that they wanted, but it was stuff that somebody could actually do. So for those of you that are listening as opposed to watching, the segment we just saw from the trailer of Now You See Me 3, or Now You See Me Now You Don't, is that it shows these magicians like running and sort of disappearing into the body of this volunteer. It looks like they're kind of spiriting away inside of this volunteer. And in real life, this is not an effect. I don't believe that could be achieved. Or if it could be achieved, it would be very expensive because it would have to be done with holograms and that kind of thing. And obviously, that's an
Right.
incredibly expensive technology. You have to have glass panes. It's a whole setup. So theoretically, they could explain it that way. These people are rich in the movie, but that's one thing. I'm hoping that they don't do a thing where they try to make it a simple illusion, but they use the CGI to make it look better than it would in real life. That's the thing I wanted to call out in lieu of being able to watch the entire trailer. So there you go. That is my 2 cents, Jay. Your point, please.
So we talked about Justice Smith, who played Simon in D&D as a fantasy wizard. We also have, and I just saw it, we have another fantasy wizard slash mage slash witch in the
Ah,
movie,
yes.
in Rosamund Pike, who plays Moiraine Sedai in The Wheel of Time. And
She's kind of all
dude,
over the place right now.
yeah, and I love
Good for
Rosamund
her.
Pike. Everything I've liked her even when she was in the Bond movie, where she played the double agent in a Bond movie.
I think she's very she's like
Versatile.
yeah, but she's versatile, and something about her face just makes her cut out for these sort of dramatic but also intimidating roles. Like she looks, she can cast a gaze and it can be an intimidating gaze. So yeah, she's very capable.
Yeah, she's so distinguished. It's very Kate Blanchett like, and very Judi Dench, and very Helen Mirren, where they can just look at you and you're like, "Yes, ma'am. What do you need?" kind of thing. So, yeah, definitely excited to see her, and I didn't know she was going to be in it. So this ought to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how much more gas the series has in it. The second movie was still fun. I still enjoyed it. I'm still glad I watched it, but it was decidedly less quality than the first one. They took some logic leaps that seemed unearned, but I still enjoyed it. It's not a bad movie. I loved it. It's still a fun movie.
I'm kind of different in your opinion of where they needed to go in this one is based on the video you showed too. Is I kind of want them to go slightly. I'm not going to use the word paranormal, but we had that big buildup to what's the eye in the first movie. Then we get to the second movie, and it's like all these people we've been working with this whole time were actually part of the eye. And how about in this movie, we actually see the eye at work? And whether it's like a government heist or something like that, where it's more, it's heavier, it's got more gravitas.
Well, I would be fine with that. I just wouldn't want them to bring in anything like very supernatural. I would want
Oh yeah,
I would want to keep it grounded because the whole thing is kind of shining a light on the art of magic and illusion and that kind of thing, and
yeah,
seeing these people as these are effects that are done with trickery, and these people while they're not using actual magic, they are remarkably skilled at what they are doing. And so I don't want them to go all and get all sort of like bringing mysticism and that kind of thing. I want them to still stick and stay true to the very grounded close-up magic, illusions, escapism, all that stuff. Or escape
yeah.
artists.
I'm just saying they could add some Dan Brownish.
Oh, I'm down for that. Absolutely, I'm down for that.
Absolutely, or some National Treasure-ish style heisting to it, and I think it would work. It would serve it well. But yeah, they don't need to be disapparating from a room and doing weird shit like that.
I just want to thank all of the listeners, supporters out there. We're growing. We're just getting our footing, and it truly does mean the world to us to have your support. We really do get so excited and recognize each and every one of you every time we get a view or any sort of interaction. So it means the absolute world to us. Your clicks, your watching the videos, the likes, the comments, all that stuff. It helps us grow. It helps us know you. It helps YouTube know who else to show us to. So please drop a like.
Absolutely.
Give us a subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll know every time that we're on Thursdays, 8, 7 Central.